William, page 331. The basement of the church is crowded with frightened women and children, but at least they are safe. Claire gives coffee to Will and Joseph and asks Ruby to introduce her to her brother. Under Claire's direction, Ruby takes Will and Joseph to a cot so they can rest. She talks on and on about how she knew Will was serious about staying away from the shop by the scared tone of his voice, and then scolds Joseph for not being somewhere she could find him. She then tells them about her experience at the courthouse when a single gunshot turned the angry crowd into a mob rushing toward Greenwood. Fortunately for Ruby, a kind man picked her up and carried her to safety. When Claire comes back with a shirt for Joseph, she warns Will that he should move his truck because, according to Mr. Gettison, the white man Will hit with his truck, white rioters found out the church was taking in Greenwood refugees and there could be another mob on the way. Will decides he would go back to his house and will come back for Joseph and Ruby in the morning. Joseph thanks Will. Will decides, after everything they had been through together, that they should be friends. So he takes the balance sheet for Joseph's Victrola and writes paid across the bottom and gives it to Joseph. Ruby is not happy to see that Will was leaving, but he promises her he will be back in the morning. On the way home, Will remembers the dead man in the back of his truck. Will decides that the man deserves a proper burial and knows his mother will understand him waiting until morning to find his family. Once he sees his mother, she greets him with a big hug, gives him a glass of buttermilk, and tells him to go upstairs and wash. Will cleans himself up and sleeps. When Will wakes in the morning, he discovers Pop had taken Angelina's grandbabies away. He also notices his mother's face is puffy and bruised around her eye and cheekbone. She tells him she couldn't keep her father from taking the children, but she would have left if he took Angelina. Will then fills his mother in on the whole story, and she tells him she is proud of him. She tells him to get Joseph and Ruby and hide them in Angelina's quarters in the new house, and that they should be safe until they can go home, if they have a home to go back to. When Will asks what she means, she says they're burning Greenwood to the ground. Will's mama packs food and he drives back to the church to pick up his friends. When he gets them to the house, Will makes them promise to stay there until he or their mother comes back for them. Ruby tells Will he's a good man before he leaves. When Will drives through the smoky haze of Greenwood, he sees white men and women carrying stolen goods from the black residents and business owners. Will is heartbroken at the thought of telling Ruby and Joseph that their home is gone, but he continues with his pursuit to find Mrs. Goodhope. Eunice comes running and shouting that Clete had been shot. Will pushes through the crowd to find Clete on the ground. He places his head on his lap and tells him to hang on. Clete tells Will as he sputters blood that his mother overheard Will's mama telling the pastor's wife about the plan regarding Joseph and Ruby. Clete admits to telling Vernon this information and says that Vernon is going to kill them. Clete dies in Will's lap. Rowan. Rowan decides to ask True how to get in touch with Tilda so that she can meet Opal, the one with the peach pie recipe. Rowan nervously knocks on the door of Opal Johnson's house. When Opal invites her in, Rowan admits she isn't there to get the peach pie recipe, but that she's there to find out more information about Opal's mother and uncle. Rowan tells Opal that the anthropologists believe the man who died was a young black man and asks her if the man was her Uncle Joseph. Opal says she cannot tell her, but she also tells Rowan not to give up so easily. She takes Rowan to the parlor and points out a dictaphone sitting on top of the Victrola cabinet. She then points her in the direction of a cabinet with dictaphone cylinders, each numbered. When Rowan asks what was on the cylinders, Opal responds, answers to some of your questions at least. William. When Will arrives at the house to check on Ruby and Joseph, he discovers that Vernon had found them. Will hears a gunshot and finds Vernon inside the servants' quarters of the new house with Ruby's neck in the crook of his arm and his gun, Maybelline, in the other hand. Joseph is slumped against the wall with blood seeping from his shoulder. Vernon tells Joseph he isn't going to kill him just yet, though, not until he has his way with his sister. When Joseph tries to crawl closer to get to his sister, Vernon points the pistol to Ruby's temple. Will takes a step forward, ready to pounce, but his foot hits a twig and alerts Vernon to his presence. Vernon laughs and threatens to kill them all if Will doesn't put down the brick. Will says he's there to apologize and tells a story about how he wants to be a man and join the Klan. He tells him he wants to help set things right again by embracing the part of himself that is white. He explains all he needs to do is get the receipt from Joseph's pocket so that it won't get out in town that Pop had sold a Victrola to a black boy to save his Pop's reputation. Will gets the receipt from Joseph and shows Vernon. When Vernon asks what his plan was, he tells him he's going to sweet-talk Joseph into giving the receipt back, and then he's going to kill him and hide the body. Vernon takes the receipt, puts it in his wallet, and hits Ruby so hard that she falls to the ground. Vernon yanks Will closer and tells him to have his way with Ruby. Will says he doesn't really know how to go about that, so Vernon gets on the floor and kneels over Ruby. Meanwhile, Joseph drags himself across the floor with the brick. Will helps Joseph up. They look at each other and the brick and know what they need to do. It happens in an instant. The brick caves in Vernon's skull. Blood seeps out on the wood. His body jerks and twists until it finally stops. Will cradles Ruby and whispers to her to look away.